Okay, so in one of my earlier videos, I said that I would most likely reference to my coworker talking about the whole thing with the breakup, and I want to do that, but I also want to talk about some of the stuff that I learned in class. But I guess I'll do the coworker thing first, and then continue with the class thing next. So, okay, I'm not obviously not going to say the coworker's name or anything, but this guy is new to where I'm working currently. He came from another continent, essentially. Africa, I believe, to be exact. And he's actually really cool. I really like him as a coworker. He is quiet. He's chill. When we are talking, we have somewhat of the same, like, agreed upon stances and ideals. We're not really super different, just only in some cases I found that I don't entirely agree with what he has to say. But he's not like super loud, he's not super annoying. He knows, like, when to stop a conversation, but also when to start one as well. And overall, I think he's just a pretty cool guy. If he played games, I definitely invite him to the Discord to join in and talk with friends. Honestly, if he just wanted people to talk to, I'd invite him to the Discord. Like I said, I think he's that cool. And while talking to him, we would talk some days somewhat on and off, right? Because we didn't work together all of the time. And one of those days, he ends up telling me that he tells me that he's going through some stuff with his wife. Apparently, him and his wife have a lot between each other that just is not going well. And he kind of hinted at it in the past, but I never really knew what he meant or, like, what exactly he was talking about. Well, it turned out that his wife and he are not close at all. They feel like, to some extent, they're only married because he wanted to meet some kind of social standard, apparently, and not because, like, they genuinely love each other. And he's brought up in the past that he doesn't really love her, but at the same time he doesn't want to leave because he has several kids from her. And he's been telling me, and he hasn't said it outright, but it's clear to tell that he's at this struggle. He's at this divide where he's trying to decide, should he stay in a relationship that he's in, or should he just up and leave? He has family telling him that he should abandon his kids and go on because they'll be fine. His wife has money. His wife can, like, live and provide and find another man if she so chooses. But if not, his kids will be fine, especially since he stashed away money for his kids as well. And he was kind of leaning into it. And thinking that maybe he should, leave his kids behind, let them grow up either without a dad or with a completely different dad, and he should move on with his life to where he can actually be happy. But then there are times where he counteracts that and says that he doesn't want to move on because he wants to stay with his kids, even if he doesn't necessarily love his wife, and that him and his wife have a lot that, like, they need to talk about but don't really talk about, and they will be at each other's throats. And he feels like she could go out and cheat or whatever the case may be, as long as she doesn't come back home with the disease, then he's okay. And that's ultimately what sums up his relationship. Uh, why this was brought up, and there was so much more that he said that, like, goes into depth, but I feel like that surface level should kind of shine a light on, like, the whole vibe of where I'm going with this. Why this gets brought up is because we were talking about my relationship and the ending of it, and he was wanting to give me advice, saying that that I shouldn't stay with my ex when she's done this and that and this and that. And I'm not really gonna go down this long list of, like, wrongdoings, right? Because it doesn't really help anybody to put anything on blast. A piece of me feels like maybe one day, maybe later today, I don't know, maybe one day I'll talk about, like, the things that she's done that have, jeopardized the relationship. Not necessarily so that I could get some kind of um, clarity from whoever's watching or listening, but more so just to kind of let people know my experience, at least with this relationship, and um, just to kind of see if there's anybody who's been through something similar or how they feel about it overall. But the coworker was basically saying that because she's done all this stuff, that I shouldn't really stay with her and that I should move on. And then a few days later, we end up working again, and he kind of changes his tune. He's saying, "Well, if there's something about her that you truly believe that, like, you love, if you guys feel like you can really stay together, whatever the case may be, then you should stay with her." And it kind of threw me off because I was like, "Hey, you were anti-women this day, but now you're like trying to salvage a relationship. Hold on." I kind of lost my train of thought because I had to go help my dad. And I have a feeling that that's going to be something that I do constantly throughout this video. So if I lose my train of thought, yeah, I apologize for that. But yeah, ultimately, that's where my coworker lied in. It was more so like his relationship was just in shambles and he was just settling because he already had a kid and they already had a house and there's nothing else that they could do. Now, I will admit, he talked about there have been times where his wife would throw him out and he'd have to live in his car and live at truck stops and do this and that to get by. One time he was starving and hadn't eaten in like a day or more and was asking people for help, including the police, and not even the police would help him out. As far as like driving him to his house so that he could do whatever. And sure, he could be lying, but at the same time, I'll just take his word for it. So far that I've seen, he hasn't been somebody who has, flat out lied. And when it comes to situations like this, considering that I'll probably never meet his wife or children, I don't necessarily see a reason why he would have to lie about it. Not sure he could have lied, but hey, I'll just let it slide and believe that he was actually telling the truth. But like I said, you genuinely get the gist that everything that was going down in his life was basically just him regretting and resenting essentially his partner and everything that they had been going through. And then not too long after that, like him talking about that for this day or that day, he turns back around and he's like, "Hey, well, if you really love this girl, if you believe that there's something real about y'all's relationship, if you feel like you should be staying with her because you need this or you want this or whatever the case may be, then you should do it." And I was like, well, that's a different song and dance from what you were saying, like where'd the change of heart come from? And I don't entirely remember what he had said after that, other than, simply just, I think he didn't want to feel like he was the reason that her and I would have split, which honestly, he wouldn't be the reason. She and I had our own disagreements. We were all split for our own reasons. So, it's not like he's the sole issue for it all. And it just seemed like he was coming back to try to help and fix things. And he was telling me that he's nobody that can like give advice, but he still wanted to give advice and say that, you should still give it a shot if you truly believe that there is one, if there is a possibility of something being there. Like instead of just giving up, fix up on it if you truly believe that it can be fixed upon. But he also said, if you think it's all for naught, then just abandon it and keep it pushing, essentially. And so, yeah, I wanted to just talk about that because that was a little bit of, well, we were already broken up, so it didn't influence my decision to break up with my ex. It was just more so something that I was taking in as advice post breakup to try to like determine how it is that I should act onward. And I mean, he's not the only person that was like trying to give me advice or whatever the case may be, but I just wanted to bring it up because I know in some cases you could be like, oh, hey, it's hypocritical to speak about something that you obviously, can't speak on because you yourself are like struggling with. But at the same time, I feel like I think the help is always warranted. It's always good to have some good for people to call out and speak to you and whatever the case may be. So I'm not too upset about it all. I just hope that his relationship goes well. I tried talking to him about it, and he didn't really seem like he was down to conversate much on it anymore. Like he was just through with it. Like he just accepted his fate. But he still talks as if he wants to go out and do more with his life. So I really do hope that he can. And I guess right now that's as much as I'll say. I'll speak about my whole class stuff after this, and then I might make like one more video, kind of just um, talking about it all as a whole. Like I said, some of the stuff that might have influenced him to be like, okay, yeah, never mind. You should stay broken up with her, or whatever the case may be, right? So yeah, eat my balls.